Just like being able to mine Bitcoin in 2008 or 2009, getting early access to mining the Gaju Mari now allows you to mine the greatest number of Gajus and benefit most from being part of this movement. We want to share that with you. We want the whole world to be part of this. We want everyone who cares about our future to get on board and take this from a movement to a reality. We want to see an economy for the people, by the people, now. Join us. Put your fingerprints on humanity's story, our history. Be a leader in the economic emancipation of humanity. It's simple. Go to gajumining.com, select the mining package that's right for you, and get started today.
All right, guys, welcome to the latest episode of Blood Money. Today we have a very special guest, Leo Zacky, who is running to become California governor in 2026. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, Vem. Thanks for having me on.
Great to have you on, man. Great to have you on. I've heard a lot of your speeches at CPAC. Definitely know a lot of individuals that speak very highly of you. And so, we wanted to get to know you, Leo. Like, first of all, give us a little bit of background on who is Leo Zacky, your life experiences, and what brought you to this juncture of the 2026 California governor's race.
All right. Well, I'm just a regular guy. I'm a fourth-generation Californian. I've spent my life in and around the poultry industry with my family because of Zacky Farms. I wound up working for them. I left college to go and start at the bottom and work my way up to becoming vice president. I also was a board member for the California Poultry Federation for a decade. I started doing that at 18. So I got to go to DC and Sacramento and meet with all the elected people, senators, congressmen, state reps, state senators, USDA, FDA, EPA, and quickly discovered how stupid and incompetent and just bad these people were and how little they cared about you or your business or your family or your livelihood. And so that was a big motivation for me.
Quick question. How old are you when this is all going on?
Which part?
Running around Sacramento meeting these incompetents,
Oh, well, I started shadowing my grandmother because she was a board member too. And so I shadowed her doing this for a couple of years. When I was 15, I started going with her.
Oh, wow.
And so when I was 18,
the reason I want to bring that up is because I did a little bit of research about you. Obviously, we have mutual friends and stuff. One of the things that people bring up, they're like, oh, you're like Zacky Farms, you're this privileged kid, but like you seem like, your grandma seems like she was kind of teaching you via the school of hard knocks. I would love to hear that.
Oh, for sure. Actually, my grandparents legally adopted me when I was 12 years old. Because I grew up in not the best situation. I had parents that weren't the best parents. Probably shouldn't have had kids, and it wasn't great. But I was able to go to good school because of my grandmother. We lived in a house because of my grandparents. But I realized it was a very bad situation at a young age. My grandparents took me in. God bless them for doing that, and they guided me into becoming the man I am today. And so, I know what it's like to have water and power and gas shut off and cars repossessed. I've lived that, growing up watching that with my parents. But my grandparents gave me real direction in life and opportunities, and I seized them at every moment. And so, yeah, I grew up, being raised by people who were grew up during the Great Depression. So I've got that perspective on life.
Yeah. I had the pleasure of meeting your grandma at one of these events. Sweet lady, and you could tell, like, she's she didn't want to give it to you easy. You definitely.
Oh no, they always made me have to cut my teeth to do whatever I want, whatever I was going to do, and that's fine, and I'm glad it was that way because I really appreciate it and I understand the value of everything that goes into whatever it may be so much more. And at the time when I was younger, going to DC and Sacramento like that, I didn't, quite realize like how big of a deal it was until like all of a sudden, they're taking you through these like special underground secret passageways between the houses of Congress and the Senate and stuff like that. And you're like, whoa, like this is behind the scenes. Like this is really crazy. And then you're sitting there in Dianne Feinstein's office, or you're in, a congressman's office, and you're right there, you're on their couch, and each one of their offices is all unique and different. And then, there's a cool congressman, I can't remember who it was, but like he takes us, he's like, yo, check this out. And like we climb out through like a window, and all of a sudden we're on like the 8th floor on the roof of one of the buildings, like looking out over the mall and the Capitol. And you're like, this is unprecedented access.
And is this, I mean, how old are you? Like you're 15, 16 when this is going on?
Well, I started shadowing them like that. That was probably when we went out on the roof. I was probably like somewhere in my early 20s when that happened.
Wow. So, I mean, did your grandma like sit you down at one point and, and say, this is, her plan, she's trying to groom you to learn this business and stuff, or was it just more through practice?
Well, I guess it was just kind of through practice. Cause like, even like before I was in the company, like I would go to all these different events with my grandma. She was always going to these luncheons all the time. And I was like, why the hell are you going to all these luncheons all the time? Like, this is ridiculous. Like you go and you eat crappy food, you got to drive to Orange County or East LA or whatever. And like, I was like, what's the point of this? You see these people all the time, and it's for different organizations, like, Western Association of Food Chains or the grocers or association or, the meat packers or, City of Hope stuff. And like, there always kind of be the same type of people. And so I that's how I learned to like, just, about networking and the importance of working with your competitors and just understanding that there are things that, sure, you can be competitors in business, but you can also work together to achieve other great goals. And I thought that was a really cool thing. And so then I started going to all those luncheons all the time and having the crappy banquet food at the hotels. But, I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, I don't know. Just, I always wanted to be a part of my family's business. Ever since I found out that we had a train, we had a locomotive at a feed mill that my grandfather had built. And I was a trainaholic when I was a kid. So they let me drive it when I was 3 years old. We had a rail spur of like 20 miles. And I was like, and that's the day I remember it clear as day. Like I knew I was going to do whatever it took to drive that train, so I built my life around that. In fact, I got a photo of that. I got a little picture of it up behind that little boat. I can show you if you want.
That's awesome. And I love to say, I mean, I want to ask, like, so family business, your grandma's taking you around, teaching you the ropes. I mean, how much of the, from what I understand about Zacky Farms, I mean, you guys were a very large family producer of poultry. I mean, what do you do at this point? Are you learning all the steps on, what it takes to run this company? Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I'd always gone around the business growing up. And then when I left college in 2012, that's when I started getting, actually like, all right, you're a W-2 employee, So I started out as a sales service representative, which was like the lowest rung on the totem pole. And so I would go to different supermarkets that we sold to. So I had a list of all the supermarkets in the Southern California area, and it was my job to go to every single one and inspect product on the shelf, meet with the store manager and the meat manager, the deli manager, if there was a deli, and stock the shelves and clean them and put the little channel strips and the danglers and the dividers in and make it all look really nice and presentable. And so I would go to like 8 to 12 supermarkets a day, depending on how far in distance it was. So that's what I would do. And I hit every single grocery store that we sold to in the SoCal area. And I did that for 2.5 years. And then I was like, hey, I need a little bit more here. Like, this is all great. Like, I really want some more help. So like, they put me into cold calling. And that really sucked because if you've ever done cold calling, it's not really fun. So, God, I can't tell you how many phone calls I made to just like, and I had to do my own research too. Like I had to generate my own leads and just search I was like using like Google Maps and like scrolling, like kind of zoomed in just to grab phone numbers for all these different little markets and call them. So I got a couple sales that way. But I didn't really feel like I was utilizing my potential to the max. And so I kept complaining to the CEO at the time. And he finally put together this whole like packet for me to do, this whole like structure. And he's like, here, like, shut up and leave me alone. So that started my whole journey on going through the entire process of learning the company from the ground up. So I worked in the hatchery. I worked in the processing plant. I worked in the packaging facility. I worked on the ranches. I got certified on stand-up pallet jacks, ride on pallet jacks, forklifts, stand-up forklifts. I did lab work. I learned how to hook up a tractor trailer to an 18-wheeler. I learned how to drive an 18-wheeler. I mean, I didn't take a CDL or get my like commercial driver's license, but I did. They like let me, because we had a parking lot and a bunch of trucks, so I could, shift gears and do that and back them up. And so, I mean, I did everything. A lot of jobs that are definitely, some places were a lot stinkier and smell and grosser than others, but all jobs the same. And so what was really cool about that is I knew how every step of the operation worked, even in the cook facility too. Like I was on the line making hot dogs and putting them on the chain driven oven and packing there. I mean, I worked shoulder to shoulder with everybody. And so I knew every single step of the process. So like if I had somebody come to me and say, oh, well, like I could call them on their BS. And it was also really cool because when I did finally, graduate that whole training process, which took a very long time to do. And I would drive to Fresno every week, Sunday night, sometime between 8 and 11 p.m. And I'd get there and then I'd start my day Monday and just grind through it. And I wouldn't leave Fresno till 5 p.m. on Friday. And so, and then anyways, I did all that stuff. So then when I finally completed that project, I wanted to have the title, vice president. I thought that was, that sounded cool and that would give me a lot of access. And so I would go around the company and like anytime there was an issue, like I would find out where the root cause of the problem was instead of just Band-Aid it. Like, if we had like too much bruising, the first place you go and like, oh, is the stunner set too high? Oh, it's not the stunner. Like, oh, it's, well, what about, is there something going on here? Is it, maybe it's happening in transit? Okay. Maybe it's happening. Is there something happening on the ranches? And then we'd work our way back. And turns out somebody in the finance department thought it was a good idea to stop giving the guys on the job called live haul, where they take them off the ranches into the trucks, decided to cut the budget and took away the Gatorade, the powdered Gatorade that you would mix into the big, Gatorade jugs, like when you're growing up playing sports. And so they were upset. And so they were starting to kick and hit the birds. And so I was like, wow, give them the Gatorade. It's like $5, And so we gave them the Gatorade. All of a sudden the bruising goes away. I mean, just simple things like that.
Mm.
But I have to get in the field to actually go and do that. I got no problem doing that. Like I would dumpster dive. Like, why is there all this tray pack and, film in the dumpster? Oh, well, the machine's kicking out every fifth, tray. Okay. Why is it doing that? Oh, well, we don't have this part. Then I got to go to the maintenance department. Why don't we have this part on hand? It's costing us more money. Oh, well, we didn't have the funding to have it on hand. So then I got to tell the CFO, hey, you're being stupid. You're bending over dollars to pick up pennies. Like, we need to have this stuff on hand. It's costing us more not to have the part than the part actually costs. So
interesting, man. That's very, what I find interesting about this is because, I did a bunch of research on you. One of the things that, obviously it's a heated race. People do a lot of name calling and all that stuff. And they're, the idea that, Leo Zacky is this privileged kid that, has had it easy. His whole life. I mean, that's nonsense, obviously.
Yeah, no, not true.
Yeah. And so, you've had and so you enter the family business at this point. Obviously, you're not the person running the business, and then California regulations and prices going up. Tell me that journey of what happened. This is like a 4-generation family business, Zacky Farms?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what happened in the last, 10, 15, 20 years? Tell me what happened there.
Okay. Well, a lot of things happened. Well, it really started like Obama when he got into office in 2008. Then in 2009, he passed the ethanol mandate, and this is a federal government thing. And so the United States is responsible for 20% of the entire world's corn supply, and he mandated that 60% of that has to go to make ethanol. And so therefore, 12% of the world's corn supply is now being converted into a very inefficient fuel source. So the price of corn, which was our primary source of feed for our birds, 95% of our feed mix was grade A corn. And so the price of corn jumped by 450%. So all the liquidity that we had in our company just disappeared really overnight. And in fact, even the second largest poultry company in the country went out of business because of that extreme added cost. So we went from paying like $1.50 to $2 a bushel to $8 a bushel, but then there's the freight, so that's another $1.10 on top of that. So we're spending $9 a bushel on corn, and we're buying 3 train loads of corn a year. So very, 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 very expensive. And with poultry, like you don't get your money back right away, because like you have to make all this investment into it, and it's a living animal, right? So like you have to. So there's the cost that goes into getting the eggs and hatching the eggs. Okay, so from hatching the egg to, from getting the egg incubated to hatching is 3 weeks, and then raising the chicken, if you're talking just chickens, it's 7 weeks to get them to process to market, and then any customer that you're dealing with has a note 30 on top of that. So you're 14 weeks out every time you place one egg to getting a return on your investment at the very bare minimum. So there's these periods where you're just like you're just stretched for capital. So we filed our first bankruptcy. It was a Chapter 11 restructuring in 2012, and that's when I left college. I was like, because I didn't want to go to college in the first place. I just wanted to go and work for Grandpa and learn under him. And they kind of talked me into going to college, and so I reluctantly went. And then my second semester of college, my grandfather passes away. So I was like, well, great. There goes that opportunity. I never got to learn under Grandpa directly like I wanted to. And so when we filed the bankruptcy, the Chapter 11 in 2012, I was like, I'm not, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. I was not going to have shame on me. So I left, and I went and worked for the company. And so we went through that whole reorganizing process, and that's when I was, in those low levels. And so when things started getting more stable, that's when they gave me that opportunity to move up. But then, California Air Resources Board was another thing that had played into effect, because we used to own our own fleet of trucks. We had over 70 trucks, and it got to the point where the new regulations, it didn't allow it to be financially viable for us to continue to operate them with the new regulations and install the equipment and have to take care of all that stuff. So we had to offload our fleet of trucks, move over to a leasing company, because even though it was more expensive than what was the previous way, it was going to be a cheaper route in the future. So we lost that part of our vertical integration, and obviously it was more expensive. And then you have the mismanagement of the resources that have been going on here in California. And believe it or not, agriculture is very water intensive, even chickens, not just the fact that they have to, and turkeys, that they have to drink it, but the whole process of processing, because sanitation involves a lot of water. But also we use water chill, which is the most clean and sanitizing way to actually, bring a bird carcass down to temperature, because you got to get all the, the fecal matter and all that other stuff out of the cavity. And so it's a nice, perfect, clean product safe for human consumption. That's why we had 0 plant shutdowns in our entire operating history of 90 years. Utilities became expensive. They shutting down the nuclear power plants made our power go up. Power costs, it's like 40 cents a kilowatt hour in California for industries. And if you go to another state, like Illinois or Indiana or something like that, it could be like 4 or 5 cents a kilowatt hour. So there's all these other factors that add up. And then in 2016, minimum wage went up by 50%. And, that's the majority of our employees are wage employees. And so the jump from $10 an hour to $15 an hour was enormous, because it's a fixed cost item. And you have, like in any business, like you have your variable costs, which you can expect to drastically change, like depending on seasonality or whatever. But then you have fixed costs, which are pretty steady. And those are things like taxes and wages and insurance, right? Those things are usually a pretty steady thing. So when you have a 50% jump in something that's not supposed to move like that, it really throws off the equilibrium of your company, because you have to find a way to offset those costs. Because the variable costs, those you can mitigate pretty easily with pricing and small adjustments, but fixed costs, that's huge. So 40% of any company's fixed cost is going to be labor. So now that increased by 50%, that's huge. So our margins totally went away, and we're playing in a global market. I mean, we were the largest privately owned employer in the state of California. We had 4,000 employees at our peak. We were a $500 million company at our peak. largest organic turkey producer in the country, when we shut our doors, pioneered antibiotic free, all these amazing things. We were selling to China. We were selling to Hong Kong, to Mexico, to Canada. We had 50% of Trader Joe's ground turkey business across the country. And when your costs become so high, the only way to offset it to stay afloat is to raise your price. You lose your ability to be competitive in a marketplace because you leave the imaginary line that is California and you go to Louisiana and they're paying $7.75 an hour minimum wage. They don't have California Air Resources Board dictating to them how they can operate their trucks. Their fuel costs aren't through the roof. Arbitrary rules that limit how fast I can process my birds don't exist there. So they can produce more in one day's worth of work than I can do, and they can do it for half the price. So where's my ability to be financially, viable? It goes away. And we were vertically integrated. So that impacted everything. We milled our own grain. So we had milling, we hatched our own birds, we had hatching, everything was done in the state of California. So that minimum wage really, really hurt us.
It's almost like you're a perfect example of how overregulation destroys businesses. I mean, you would think that California would do everything possible to make sure businesses like yours exist and they're employing people, especially when you're doing quality work like the work that you guys were doing. Now, how did a lot of different companies deal with that? I mean, we heard about so many companies leaving California. What are the tangible realities in terms of companies leaving California, but also in terms of poultry? You're saying it's half price if you go to Louisiana
just on the wage side. We were the only privately owned, family owned, vertically integrated poultry company in the state of California. There are other producers, but they're either publicly traded or they're owned by another massive entity that operates outside of California as well as in California. So that offsets their operational costs here in California, or they're backed by a religious institution. So short of that, being an independent business owner in California, it's not really viable. But look what happened to all these companies. Oracle has packed up and left. In-N-Out Burger has now moved their headquarters to Nashville, Tennessee. 99-cent stores went out of business. Tesla moved their operations to Texas. That's just Bed Bath & Beyond doesn't want to open any stores here. And now you have Gavin Newsom literally telling them to F off. Like how is that responsible? And it's so much bigger than, they don't operate here. It's the jobs that would have come with it. Like there are tens of thousands of jobs that are being lost. And then those people don't have the opportunity to then get gainful employment or health insurance through their company. The state loses out on tax revenue, not just from the income, but from the businesses, and it's like, oh, do you wonder, is it any wonder why the state's losing population? Is it any wonder why the state's going into debt? I mean, aside from the other waste of money that they do, but they're losing then they increase taxes, right? That's California's only solution to the problem is, oh, well, we're not making enough money, so we need to increase the rate of taxation upon the people that are left behind. It's the dumbest thing. And
it's almost like they've created this fictitious world in their heads. And, you look at Gavin Newsom's plans with electricity basically taking over for gas, fuel powered cars. And it's just not realistic. Yes, in a perfect world, I'd love for everybody to get paid $100 an hour. I'd love for everything to run on electricity and there be no emissions. But it's a fictitious world that they're basing this on. So essentially, they're cornering themselves into impossible situations like the one you described.
Yeah, but Vem, even at $100 an hour, what does that actually represent for the value of the dollar? We can't just keep increasing wages, because all it does is it makes the value of the dollar worth less.
Yeah. No, it's preposterous. That's my point.
Right. No, I mean, I would love for I'd love for people to make good money, but they have to have an environment that allows them to keep it, and so it has actual real value, and they can spend it on things and enjoy their lives. Like, we used to be a country that could afford to own a home and raise a family on a single income. We don't have that anymore. I mean, I have all my friends that are starting to get married and have kids. They both work and they're still paying a mortgage if they can even afford to buy a home here, or they just move. They just leave.
Yeah, they've created an impossible, impossible state to even have kids in. I mean, that transition as well into the parental rights issue, which is in California. It seems as you have all these crazy bills coming out, taking parental rights away. Children could decide their gender before they're even,
It's so ridiculous.
of age. Let's talk a little bit about those ridiculous destructive policies. And you look at this sort of thing. By the way, one thing I want to mention in Nevada, you have instances where, again, the federal government, through terrible regulations, has managed to get rid of all the people that are farmers grazing the land with cattle, raising organic cattle, to now be replaced. I think there was something like 54 farmers 30 years ago. Now through regulations, there's like literally one left. So when you look at this as a bigger picture, it's hard not to see this as like putting things in motion that are destructive for the American people. And we see it in California, we see it in Nevada, we see how they're destroying your business out there with the crazy regulations, wages, you name it. Firstly, is this all intentional from what you see? And how do you get yourself out of this mess when you have essentially our politicians having become self-destructive towards the people?
I mean, it's a combination. I definitely know for a fact that there are people that are doing this maliciously and intentionally. I mean, Gavin Newsom literally is a disciple of the World Economic Forum. What's his name? Klaus Schwab. He went to Klaus Schwab's School of Future World Leaders. Like, he attended that, graduated that. So there's no doubt in my mind that there are people that are intentionally pushing this globalist agenda, and it's about choking out private enterprise and private ownership. I mean, look what happens when these companies go under or these farms go under. Who comes and swoops in and buys it up? Bill Gates, China, some other massive megacorp. I mean, that's really it. Nobody else is doing it. So the independent farmer is being just totally wiped out. And they're just centralizing control over everything. It's control over food. It's control over power. Like, look, even look at how electricity works and water works in this state. It's all centralized, right? One big monopoly owns even the cable companies, right? It's all centralized control. Then you also have the useful idiots, that they've been able to indoctrinate and swindle into this, and they are more than happy to push it along with their NPC hive mind, mentality.
It's absolute bonkers. It's absolute bonkers. Now let's talk about like a Governor Zacky administration. Obviously, you're running for office, and people should know your qualifications, because one of your qualifications is you're an independent businessman and entrepreneur. But the other thing is that however good you are in a climate which is aimed at really destroying that business, independent business person or entrepreneur, you can't survive no matter how much resources you have.
Right.
So I'm sure that experience had a lot to do with you running for office. Tell me a little bit more about your goal of becoming governor.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in all sorts of types of business. Like, I've been in the restaurant business. I've been in large scale agricultural and manufacturing. I'm in startups. I'm in environmental tech. I'm in AI. I mean, I'm in all these different types of business. I mean, we've got a commercial property that we just are in the process of selling right now, because the permitting process and all these regulations are a freaking nightmare to deal with. I have a great property on Main Street in Santa Monica, and I can't get the approval to build the building that I want to help revitalize that area. Main Street, Santa Monica is dying. If you haven't been down there, a lot of vacancies.
Yeah. By the way, I was there recently, and having grown up in LA, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like 40% of the shops are closed.
Yeah.
Not to mention, it's absolutely disgusting. You're literally walking over smelly homeless people trying to dodge the worst smells on the planet. I mean, I took my friend to a restaurant there, and a homeless person walked in, and I don't know, he was touching stuff, and then we both got sick. I mean, it's bad. It's not even like, we're getting to the point of this is becoming a hygienic issue. Where you walk into a restaurant, dude walks in, touches a whole bunch of stuff, and then you have a bunch of people becoming sick afterwards. I mean, that's not normal.
You're hearing reports of plague and cholera. These are like Victorian era diseases that we've pretty much eradicated, but they're making a comeback. And that's because there's filth everywhere.
I used to read all about, like, when we were growing up, about like the scurvy and the Black Plague, and I can't believe that in modern day, in 2025, we've regressed so much
Right.
from our common sense that we're allowing the stuff back into our culture.
Yeah, but this isn't hyperbole. This is 100% reality. We're just living through it, and people just keep their head down because cancel culture doesn't allow them to speak out against this, because they're too afraid, because if they do, they could lose their job. The job that's extremely hard for them to already get. I mean, there's so many people in my generation and younger that are struggling to get employment. And then you've got the older generation that's just like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. When I was your age, I was making $100,000. That would be incredible. It's like that the money doesn't go that far anymore because we're taxed to death. I mean, we got 35% federal income. We're spending, it's almost 15% here, right, for state income tax. Then it's like 9.5% sales tax everywhere you go. The outrageous excise tax. You spend almost $6, a gallon on gas. Food is expensive. Your utilities are through the roof. Like, nobody has the means to survive anymore. And all that keeps continuing to happen is the value of the dollar becomes worth less. And that's a problem, because people don't have the ability to independently create wealth for themselves because there are too many barriers to entry, specifically financially, but that's from all the overregulations that are in place and all the permitting processes that have to occur. I mean, the fact that we don't have desalination operating is simply because of environmental regulatory barriers, CEQA and the Coastal Commission and other environmental wackadoodles. And then Gavin Newsom signing off on blowing up dams on the Klamath River, water storage and power generation. That's all gone. Like it's so ridiculous. It's oxymoronical. Wouldn't you want to create all this power and water in abundance? Isn't that the concept? I mean, our farmers are being choked out. In Northern California, they cut off 7,000 farmers from water. There are pear trees that are 110 years old that aren't going to get the water they need. They're going to freaking die. 110-year-old pear trees. That's incredible. It's not, and a lot of people don't understand, it's not a switch. You don't just turn it on, turn it off, okay? It takes years for these plants to mature to be able to bear fruit. And our farmers, these independent farmers that have had this land for 5, 6, 7 generations, they can't make it. And so they get wiped out, and then they have to sell it off. And then some megacorp comes in and buys it just for the water allocation. They rip everything out there. That land lays fallow, and they use that water for their crops elsewhere. And you're growing less crops the whole time. I mean, it's absolutely insane to me. It breaks my heart when I drive up the 99 and I see all these uprooted trees. It breaks my heart.
It's environmentalism, which basically sounds completely retarded. It's like, yes, I don't understand how.
That is exactly the word. It is retarded.
Like, you could be an environmentalist, but you're not going to water the plants and let them die. I mean, it's unbelievable, man. It's unbelievable. You had amazing ideas about water, concerning, with the fires that happened. We saw a lot of your videos of you walking around the Pacific Palisades, well documented.
Backyard, man.
Yeah. I mean, you tell us a little bit about some of your ideas of how to fix this whole water issue.
For sure. I mean, again, background, agriculture, farmer, we like simple solutions, and we're dumping fresh water to the ocean. This is a known fact. Then you have things like the Merced bypass, where snow melt is just being siphoned all the way out to the ocean, and they're fining farmers for tapping into it. This is insane. Okay. They tell us there's a drought. You could have gone snowboarding in Mammoth this year into July, and last year you could have done it into August. So it's not that we don't have enough water. We're just not collecting it. And believe me, the rains do come. I mean, hell, Imperial Valley just got hit with a monsoon, and they have 4,000 people without power. Okay. We're not harnessing our resources. We haven't built significant water structure in this state in 50 years, but the population in that time has doubled. And the mismanagement of these resources is leading to extremely high costs, and they're leading to exacerbated disasters. Look what happened in the Palisades. There's a reservoir, purpose built, by the way, for firefighting, 117 million gallons, bone freaking dry because it needs minor repairs. Okay. This is a lack of urgency. This is a lack of leadership. It's always reactionary. That's the other issue that this state has with the leadership. Everything we do is reactionary. It's never taking a proactive stance on doing the right thing to make this state resistant and resilient and independent and wealthy. I want to build reservoirs all throughout the state, not only to capture the rainwater, but to capture the snowpack, build them up at high altitudes, dam up canyons along the Sierra Nevada, utilize hydroelectric as it comes down from the higher elevations. I want to dam up our concreted rivers we have in our major metropolitan areas. Like, for example, here in Los Angeles, we have the LA River, the Rio Hondo, the Santa Ana. They're all concreted up. They all run out to sea. Dam them up with a spillway at the end and segment other dams as elevation decreases to have water storage and build the purification plants to then pump that in the municipal system. You then build the desal plants that we've been approved for. We've been approved for 50. Build those all along the coast, also helping take the pressure off the inland reserves, creating an abundance of water, utilizing not only the hydroelectric power, but using small modular nuclear reactors as well to create a robust infrastructure to eliminate brownouts and blackouts and bring consistent, cheap power throughout the state, creating lower cost of living through lower utilities and also providing enough water to grow an abundance of food here in California, where we can be the global leaders in organic food production, where our farmers won't have to rely on herbicides and pesticides to maintain their crop, their limited crop, because of the limited water allocations that they're getting. Currently, we can have such an infinite amount of water that they won't need that. And then even better, turn it into a revenue generator. So having an abundance of water in reserve not only gives us the ability to be drought resistant and better fight fires, but we can also then turn around and auction off the portions of the allocated watershed that we get from the Colorado River. We get the lion's share of it. We can auction it off to our neighbors, and those neighbors include Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, and sell it off monthly, quarterly, biannually, annually, whatever, and bring money into the state that way that's not coming from your taxable dollars. You also see more food being produced and more lower costs for operating businesses and households. You'll see more production come there. There's more taxable income that can come in off of that. And so all my solutions are complementary, but I want to get there by utilizing these public works projects, but I want to utilize a resource that we have been ignoring and haven't actually harnessed. And that's our homeless population. We have to utilize them and get them back into a working position where they can reenter society. But it's a mental health crisis compounded by drug addiction, exacerbated by a failed education system. So by enforcing our vagrancy laws, we can then have reason to remove them from living on the streets in front of our businesses and parks and defecating all over the place, and get them the proper treatment that they need. Not build out multi-million dollar brick and mortar facilities with beds that cost $80,000 a year to maintain. I'm talking about a self-sustaining homeless solution that was going to be beneficial for everybody. You get them into the program, you give them the treatment for their mental health and for their drug habit, and you give them these small modular tiny homes are 400 square feet. They cost $2,000 a unit, but we can pay them off at $75 a month over 27 months. That's a deal I've worked out with the company who makes them. You can hook them up to sewer and water and power and gas lines. You can put solar panels on them if we need to. But these people are going to do on the job training, and they'll do real jobs. They'll do construction, and that construction stuff will be helping build these reservoirs. If you give 10,000 people a shovel, they can dig a pretty big hole pretty quickly, and then they can also pour concrete. And so rinse and repeat, that's a reservoir. That's one thing that we can do, and that's going to help offset our expense on taking care of them. They'll do sanitation work, have them clean up the sides of our highways and our tourist traps, like the wharf up in San Francisco or Hollywood Boulevard or the pier in Santa Monica. Beautify our communities and our roadways, make the state beautiful, clean up the trash, be environmentally conscious that way. And then agriculture work, they can raise crops with all that water that we're going to be able to create, the abundance of water we'll have, raising crops. And then we can turn around and use those crops. If it's table grade, for human consumption, we can sell it as an organic feel good product, and it will command a very high price. Even if it's just feedlot, it'll still be, something to help offset the expense of taking care of them. And then basic firefighting and underbrush clearing, have them go in and help clear out the forests of the underbrush that's leading to all these devastating, or being the kindling and the fuel for these ridiculously devastating wildfires. And so that will prevent these wildfires from being as frequent and as destructive. And that'll save us billions of dollars on the balance sheet right there. So they do all this work, they earn minimum wage doing it, but you deduct the cost of their medical care and their housing and all that. It never puts them into a position of debt. That money that they earn goes into an account they can't touch until they complete the project. The whole while they're getting sober, they're building their self-esteem, they're learning a job skill. So now they've got a job skill, they've got their self-esteem, they're eligible for government-assisted housing, they got money in the bank, and anybody who hires them coming out of the program gets a tax incentive for doing so. And so that's my Homeless to Home project, and I think it's got a lot more viability than what we're currently doing. We're putting them in hotels at $400 a night, or putting them in $20,000 Home Depot sheds and stacking them too high. This is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. I mean, how did the homeless crisis become so bad in California?
Well, as soon as somebody realized that they could turn it into a homeless industrial complex. I mean, it really started with Governor Moonbeam, Jerry Brown, and he basically told all the other states to send us your homeless. And so that's exactly what they did. They buy them one-way, bus tickets and ship them here to California. And because it doesn't get cold enough for them to freeze to death in the winter, that's why, and they get all these other incentives too. Like we have a clean needle program, and these like safe, shooting up sites, and we're giving them the ability to continue to live that way. In some places, they get money for living on the streets. And then there was the Obama phones. It's crazy. I see homeless people and they're out there like on their smartphones, like in their encampment, next to like a business. It blows my mind. So, and then people figured out that they could turn this into a money laundering scheme. I mean, look what's happened with Lassa.
It's crazy. It's like everything's for sale. And the thing that I keep hearing is how people keep getting taken advantage of. You're hearing about this train that, God knows whose pockets that went into. I mean, really, why aren't we seeing people
because there's no
being tried for stealing money? These people should be in jail.
But that's the thing. There's an absence of consequences here, Vem. Nobody's actually being properly held accountable. That's the reality. Nobody's actually seeing any trial. Nobody's seeing significant jail time or punishment. It just doesn't occur because the system is so rotten and corrupt from within, and it's been allowed to operate that way. When you have leaders that are taking advantage of the system and not putting their best foot forward, and the people that work under them see that, they say, oh, they can do that. I want to get away with that too. And that's just something I've learned from being in business and being in an executive leadership position. I held myself super accountable, and I led by example, because if you don't have that accountability and that leadership that you got to lead by example. Like I showed up, I busted my ass, and people were like, wow, the family cares. The executives are actually involved. They're doing stuff. Look, they're working shoulder to shoulder with me, and it motivates them to do the right thing, and things would improve. But you have people that are taking advantage of this. I mean, look, like I was mentioning with Lassa, like, look, they spent over $1 billion in 2023, and they housed a little over 800 people. It was like 813 people. So it cost over $1 million a person to house. That's hyper inefficient. And then the lady that was in charge of
Leo,
it,
that's not just hyper inefficient, man. People got rich off of that. People robbed the people off of that. And I guess,
they're telling their friends and their family, go start some, company and go buy socks off of Alibaba, for like pennies on the dollar. Call yourself some freaking charity, and we'll give you, we'll buy those socks off of you for $10 a pair. They're lining their pockets. They pat themselves on the back. Oh, look, we put them in housing. We've done our job. Because the whole thing here with California is it's housing first, housing first. You put a roof over their head, they're not homeless anymore.
Mm.
It's not a housing issue. It's a mental health and a crisis and a drug epidemic. I mean, yes, they're not housed, but it's kind of hard to get a job when you're on freaking drugs, or your mind is all bent out of shape. Nobody's hiring that, but that's why they need treatment. And that's what I'm trying to offer. And so we spent what, $25 billion, and we got what, 50% more homeless? And that's the other thing too, is that if they actually solve the issue, then they're out of a job.
I mean, it is like so infuriating listening to this stuff, because the fact that there's not dozens, hundreds of people in jail for doing this. I mean, really what's happened is that the suffering of the people has been monetized. So whether it's homeless suffering, whether it's suffering through parental rights of what the family courts do with, taking away custody. So you're in this perpetual fight and now nobody wants to get married, whether it's anything, public services, why we don't have water. The answer to all of those questions seems to be that the people's suffering equals their financial gain, which to me just sounds like the most grotesque high treason when you're really doing destructive things to your population. I mean, how far do you take it? I mean, are you going to prosecute these people? What do you think needs to happen
Absolutely.
to stop this nonsense?
Well, yes, there needs to be accountability and there needs to be consequences. If there's criminality taking place, which I'm certain there is at some level, then there needs to be real meaningful consequences, not just like, oh, we're going to fine you, slap on the wrist, here's, a couple of years in jail or whatever. No, like real serious consequences. But we have to have, judges that are going to actually, carry out these trials and give meaningful sentences. You also need to have sheriffs that want to uphold the Constitution and do their job, because we've got 58 counties, which means we have 58 sheriffs. And as a sheriff, your responsibility is to be the ultimate arbiter of the Constitution. And so when constitutional violations take place from executive or legislative leadership, or even judicial, it's their responsibility to step in and say, correct this or you will be arrested. But they're not doing that. And so there has to be accountability.
Okay, so I got to kind of chime in here on the not doing it topic, because we've heard all sorts of things about, like, election fraud. The sheriffs could do X, Y, and Z.
They can.
And none of these things seem to be happening. Now, why is it not? I mean, I have my own personal, investigations that I've discovered why it's not happening, because it seems as though they're all in cahoots. It's a big ecosystem of corruption where people do things for favors.
Exactly.
And just like you said, you're part of this group, you're going to sell socks that cost you 20 cents for $10, and you're going to make $1 zillion off of that. That seems to be what's happening. So how do you address that when it's an ecosystem of corruption where sheriffs aren't doing their jobs, where politicians aren't doing their jobs? They're just getting rich off of our suffering, really, at the end of the day.
Well, you have to eliminate the bureaucracy as much as you can. I mean, anybody that's an appointed position that can be removed, then that's what you do. You just carte blanche, like everybody's gone. Everybody's gone. You want that job back? Reapply. And you actually have real vetting process take place with people who are actually motivated to make sure that things run appropriately and correctly. And that's one way to start it, is with the appointed positions that come from the bureaucratic bloat. The other thing too that you have to have is transparency. So what we don't have in any good business, you have a purchasing department, but the state doesn't have that. So what do? All the budgets for all these different entities, it's like spend all your money or you don't get as much or more next year. Anything that they sure, give them their money. I would like to rein in the spending altogether. I would like to just flat out the gate, cut every department by 10% across the board. And because I've been in positions where that's happened and they're just like, we need the money to do this. It's like, no. And the whole response is figure it the F out. And so that's what you got to do. And so having anything that they want to, expense capital on purchasing wise for their department, obviously aside from, salaries and labor and all that, has to go through a purchasing department. Oh, you want to go and buy you want to go and build out let's say a restroom at your sheriff's department. Okay. That all has to be, done through a purchasing department who's going to sign off on whether that's acceptable at the price that you found. So, because a purchasing department's job is to make sure that you're getting at least the base quality that you require at the best possible price. That's what a purchasing department's supposed to do. So when we don't have a purchasing department You have people that are, these sheriff's departments will go and spend $1 million on like some crazy mobile, command center that will never see action, but their friend owns the company that makes it.
I mean, you just gave an example. You just gave. Everybody knows. I'm not going to touch upon this topic too much, but obviously with the Chad Bianco situation, our deep dives into that department, and you seem to have a lot. I'm not going to stay on that topic, but you seem to have a lot of that sort of thing where it's like a bathroom that would cost $100,000 is being billed at $600,000, and everybody is making a whole lot of money by this level of corruption. Again, the same sort of thing with the rail system that never happened, and they spend gazillion dollars. The other problem I find in this is that, okay, we have a lot of problems. We see that, there's 58 sheriffs. They're not doing their jobs. The politicians are just making themselves rich, right? But then we have this California GOP and whoever that is collectively seem to be really pushing one or two candidates. There seems to be a lot of really great candidates like yourself that are not getting that much love. Tell me a little bit about what's going on there, whether you're frustrated. How do we fix that issue?
It's two heads of the same monster, Vem. I mean, there are good people on both mainstream political parties. Okay. There are good people. The vast majority of them happen to be on the Republican side, but they are only the grassroots. You have the establishment rhinos and you have the woke progressive Marxist globalist left. Okay. And it's two heads of the same monster. They have figured out how to make money in California, especially the CAGOP. They figured out how to make money being losers day in and day out. The fact that the chair of the California GOP makes more money in salary than the governor does annually, and now has a bonus structure built in, is kind of a crazy concept. And of course, they're not going to talk to me. You know why? Because I'm going to piss in their soup. I'm here to clean up this whole, taking advantage of the people. And so what they do is they artificially fill the internal voting inside the party with all these proxies. They give all these proxy votes out to all these different people, especially these like college Republicans, young Republicans, and they say, you're going to vote for our people and we're going to make sure you get a job in politics somewhere, advance your career. And these kids show up. They don't know the dynamic. They don't know the history. They don't know the background or, the infighting that's taking place in the party. They're just like, oh, that's the person in charge. They're going to give me a job. I'm a, gung-ho young conservative, I want to go do my thing. And so they go and they give them the little clicker and then they vote for the person that they're told, and the grassroots people get pushed out. I mean, like they just like flushed in, because we're having our convention coming up, like 300 new associate delegates, and they just pump up the voting numbers. I mean, it's so ironic how we're the Republican Party, right? And we talk about election integrity, voter fraud, and doing all and inflated voter rolls. And here we are doing the same thing internally in our own party.
And when we interviewed David Serpa and Daniel Mercury, they talked about this, how they're both being set up to come to a debate where it was already decided who the winner was, but they were basically, it's this humiliation ritual that they wanted to put him through. They both found out that it was all set up. They even confronted the individuals. Initially, they denied it, but then eventually it was admitted that before the debate even happened, they decided who the winner is.
Oh, yeah, no.
They're using them as props.
Yes, and I actually went to that, and they gave us it wasn't even a debate. They gave us 3 minutes to talk. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I spent my time and my money and took my butt out there to go and do it. I mean, and Daniel called me and told me about that, and I knew it was a setup from the start. But you know what? I was like, you know what? F these MFers, like, I'm gonna go do this anyways. Because I'm talking about the people that made the setup. That is, I'm gonna do this anyways because you know what? I'm a big man here, and I'm gonna show you, what a real solution sounds like. But it's all favoritism, right? It's all like, oh well, and that's the other thing too is Republicans are so desperate in this state. They're just so desperate that, and it's always the older ones. It's the boomers, and for all the boomers out there, I'm sorry, but you need to break off of Fox News and do your own research. And don't just accept the first Republican that shows up, or I saw them on TV. That means they're legitimate. It's like, no, they're not, because it's the same TV stations that lied to you about COVID, that lied to you about the 2020 election. It's the same ones. Nothing's changed. Okay. And now they're pushing these people. Like, you don't know them. You're like, oh, I saw him on TV. That's all I need to know. They're a Republican. End of story. Oh, he's got a badge. Oh, he used to work in the UK government. Great. Who gives a crap? Like, what do they actually bring to the table? What solutions? Like, anybody can talk about what's wrong with this place. It's how we get out of this mess. They don't offer that.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. The whole thing's rigged to basically funnel their people into the
money because the CAGOP, they want to find a candidate who they think they can utilize to bring in the most money into the party.
Fundraising.
Right,
and I'm not trying to
it's who can bring the most money into the party.
Yeah.
And when they do, it's like, okay, they tell them you're going to work with this person and you're going to hire that person, and they all keep it all in the family. It's one hand washing the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I almost think that, there's a lot of great candidates. You guys are obviously talking. You guys are obviously communicating via phone. There's got to be a time where you guys unify to beat the biggest monster that exists here.
Oh, no, honestly,
the party itself.
Yeah, no, that is the biggest obstacle to success here in California is our own internal state party corruption and the lack of actually wanting to do the right thing. And they won't host a proper debate. And they're telling the other candidates not to debate these, the lower quote unquote.
It is sorry to interrupt you, but it is such a bad form because really what's happening, and I could tell you the way this plays out, obviously there's a lot of people, especially in the Riverside GOP, that are wanting to push Chad Bianco forward. That's part of that rigged debate that we just talked about with Mercury Serpa being tipped off early on that this was rigged, right? So fine, it's rigged. You really love that guy. Have we thought about the next steps to that? Have we looked at it more in a 4D chess kind of way? Because the time's going to come that person is going to have to face off against a Democrat, right? And it's obvious that is the weakest possible person.
They're going to lose. No, they're going
to lose. They're setting up a loser. So my mind, after being 5-6 years, is like
they don't care. Vem, they don't care.
No, but to me, I'm like, all right, is it just they're trying to raise funds, right? One option is they're trying to raise funds. They know he's a loser, but they just want to raise maximum dollars because there's a lot of fanatical types that are into him. Or is it that this is literally intentionally setting up a loser? Because you could imagine like a Bianco versus Porter, he loses that, right? Now, Porter versus, like a Zacky, man, the way you hold yourself, you don't seem like you're going to fall into those traps of ill temperament and twitching and the kind of stuff we've seen Bianco do, right? Serpa, he knows how to hold himself well. Mercury seems to hold himself well. Even Hilton, I would put in there. You have a guy with a British accent,
No, Californians aren't going for that. They're not. They just won't.
I'm purely talking about optically, like who is the point I'm trying to make really is like you're putting the worst person forward for that kind of a challenge when there's a number of other individuals that'll handle that challenge much better. Anybody with a little bit of foresight could know that is the issue. So I question their intentions. I guess that's my point.
Well, the state party or the candidates?
No, not the candidates so much. The candidates I think are relatively clueless to this kind of a thing. I'm talking about, why would you put up a bad candidate?
Because they don't care. They don't, because it's not about winning. It's about making money and continuing to stay in power. It's the same thing. Like they gave Jessica Patterson an illegal third term according to our bylaws internally. They keep breaking their own bylaws internally.
It's crazy.
And they give themselves raises.
And they give themselves raises. And in winning, in losing, they're winning. We're losing. They're winning, though. This seems like they're doing well.
Right. Hey, there's somebody of influence. They're the head of the party. They get to meet Donald Trump. They're a somebody. They can make you or break you.
Yeah.
It's a freaking power trip.
Leo, this has been a really good interview, man. I'm glad we've gone deeper look into you. I think we've addressed a lot of the things in terms of people getting to know you better, your history, misconceptions, the hard work that you did, even earning your stripes for your family business coming up under your grandmother and grandfather. Is there anything, message to the people? Is there anything you want to discuss before we wrap it up, man? The mic's all yours.
This isn't about party anymore. It's not. Like, there is a broken system here. Our government is so corrupt. Our parties are corrupt. And the only people that are benefiting are the ones that are in those positions of power, and everybody else around them is suffering. We, the regular people, are suffering. Our streets are broken. They're full of homeless. Everything's expensive. Nothing works. The quality of life sucks. And what do we get? What? Oh, we got the weather. Oh, this is how wonderful. We got the weather here in California. Whoop-de-doo. It's, In-N-Out burgers, expensive. Hell, even when I go to Del Taco at like 3 a.m. after playing hockey, it's like, how the hell are a couple of tacos like $20? It's crazy. Nothing works. Everybody talks about what's wrong with this place. It's very apparent that there are key foundational issues here that impact everybody. We know what they are. But the problem is that the leadership doesn't have a solution, and they don't want to fix it because they don't care about you. And this is my home, okay? I'm a fourth-generation Californian. I grew up here, born and raised in Los Angeles, spent a lot of my time in the Central Valley working with my family. I know this state up and down, inside and out, and I've developed the solutions to actually fix this place from a business background perspective, where anything you want to do has to have a way of being able to offset itself with a net positive return. We can have lower taxes in the state. We can have affordable gas in the state. We can have jobs in this state. We can eliminate property tax. We can have school choice. We can have the highest quality education. We can build an environment to have the lowest possible taxes. I'd love to get rid of them altogether, but we have to utilize our resources and manage them properly. We have to have accountability. We have to have consequences for those who choose to go down the wrong path and negatively impact so many of us. I don't need this job. I trust me. I have so many other things I'd rather do. This is going against my better judgment of running out here and becoming a public figure, spending my own good time and hard money on this. I'm in this race for over $1 million of my own personal dollars. Okay? I don't want to run away from this because this is my home. And this destructive, failing government is rife throughout our country. And I want to put a stop to it here in California. Okay? I want people to live the lives that they want. I want people to create the opportunities and their own wealth here. They just need to be empowered and have that opportunity. I want to utilize technology. I want to streamline the process where people can go and get permitting to start a business or build an addition to their home or get an alcohol license or whatever. Utilizing AI and streamlining it and having an efficient government website. I want transparency. I don't care what political party you're affiliated with. You can't tell me that we don't have a homeless problem or we have a mismanagement of resources or life is too expensive. I have the solutions to make the cost of living come down, to make the quality of life go up. And that way people can have the lives that they deserve. This isn't about me, okay? This is about my home and all my other Californians. I want this place to work. And I really hope that you guys will give me the opportunity to do that for you because I don't trust any of these other guys. And I've done my research, and I would encourage you guys to do your research too. It's really that simple. I'd love the opportunity to be that person for you guys because I don't need this. And look, if you see something wrong that I'm doing, you're not happy, like call me out. Like hold my ass accountable. Hold my feet to the fire, please. And if you're unhappy with the work I do, then don't reelect me.
Man, I think all things considered, I mean, we need this change in California. And I, like you, am concerned about what's going on in the Republican Party because I think before this race even started, they shot we the people in the foot. Obviously, there's probably a dozen people that filled their pockets on this, but we're not pushing the great candidates forward. We're just not right now. And,
And what we're doing is not working.
It's not working. No. But Leo, I really appreciate your time, brother. Thank you so much for coming on to the Blood Money podcast. For the viewers out there, we're going to interview as many candidates that will allow us to interview them, including Democrats, by the way, because it's very important for people to know what's going on in this race. What I'm noticing is that all that stuff that was happening with what we used to call the woke left is happening now with just the woke right, where it's dishonesty, lying about who's out there and their attributes. We have government employees that have done those kinds of entrepreneurship in their life, running against a number of individuals that have those skills. And we got to look at those individuals, much closer, because I don't think we're looking in the right direction right now. At least that's my 2 cents, Thank you, Leo, again, for coming into the Blood Money podcast. For the viewers out there, make sure you check out AmericaHappens.com, where we have all of our featured episodes. And make sure you check out my X account at Vem Miller, where we're post 10 times a day, old episodes, new episodes. I will see you all on the next episode of Blood Money. Take care.
Over the last 30 years, we have seen the value of our work diminish and the price of real assets like land and homes increase to the point that for most people under the age of 40, the hope of owning their own home has been lost. The response of governments around the world to the 2008 global financial crisis and COVID was to defer the cost of these events to the future. They did this by printing money, in effect selling our futures to pay for their bad decisions. This is corporatism, not capitalism. Money printing didn't hurt those in power, nor those who supported them, because they had real assets, property, shares and businesses that rose in price to match the inflation of money supply. But for most of us around the world, it sold our future for a fraction of its value. In response to this, a mysterious figure known as Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin. He wanted to create a currency that could not be printed on command, thereby devaluing our labor. A currency that could be traded electronically between people without intermediation, allowing all of us to participate fairly in the economy. But if you tried to buy your groceries with Bitcoin, you'd stand at the checkout for at least 10 minutes, probably hours, waiting for the transaction to process, and the fee would cost you more than the carton of eggs and bag of apples. Bitcoin's limitations meant that it stopped being considered a currency in 2016 and was instead called a store of value. But it opened the door for someone to create a genuine currency that nobody controlled, but everyone could use. That someone is us. We created the Gajumaru blockchain and the Gaju currency. The Gaju is real money you can use, whether that is to buy a loaf of bread, pay for a haircut, buy a t-shirt, in fact buy or sell anything. It is a currency for everyday use. On Gaju Market, anyone can buy and sell any legal goods or services, just like you would on eBay, but at a fraction of the cost. Like Bitcoin, Gajus are mined on a computer. Unlike Bitcoin, mining Gajus does not require specialized equipment, nor huge power supplies. During our protected rollout, you can mine this on everyday computers, like the ones that sit in your home doing nothing for most of the day. We are working to get millions of people like you to mine the Gajumaru and be rewarded with Gajus that you can then use as real money. At the end of 2026, the Gajumaru will open to public mining. By then, we will have brought together millions of people like you to mine the Gajumaru. This will create such powerful combined computing capacity across so many millions of people that the Gajumaru can remain highly decentralized, enabling an economy for the people, by the people. To make all of this possible, we offer a variety of mining packages that combine all of the software and services you need on our website, gajumining.com. The software is simple to install, and there is a step-by-step guide that will get you mining and participating quickly and easily. You can buy those packages now. You can start mining the Gajumaru and being rewarded in Gajus now. Select a suitable mining package from the gajumining.com web store. Install and activate the software on your device and start mining today. This is an opportunity to be part of a movement to restore our humanity, our dignity, our sovereignty, creating a better future for everyone. For the first time in thousands of years, you will directly benefit from your work, your ideas, without being taxed by intermediaries or needing permission to be part of the global economy. We believe that capitalism is I win, you win, we all win, not I win, you lose. That's corporatism. We refuse to pursue venture funding that would demand we play the corporatist game, and chose instead to grow this movement by giving everyone the opportunity to benefit from their contribution to the movement. Just like being able to mine Bitcoin in 2008 or 2009, getting early access to mining the Gajumaru now allows you to mine the greatest number of Gajus and benefit most from being part of this movement. We want to share that with you. We want the whole world to be part of this. We want everyone who cares about our future to get on board and take this from a movement to a reality. We want to see an economy for the people, by the people, now. Join us. Put your fingerprints on humanity's story, our history. Be a leader in the economic emancipation of humanity. It's simple. Go to gajumining.com, select the mining package that's right for you, and get started today.